first. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the homework. Today, y'all thought you could make me suffer by choosing math, which I probably will still suffer. Yeah, welcome to the homework stream, gang. They can't hear you yet, by the way, because I haven't started it for the audio for them. No, I mean, it's good. I unmute desktop audio and you guys are heard now, so.
Oh, this is interesting.
Let me transition to my main screen where you get to see my fridge I made yesterday with art pieces people made, and the one thing that is just not an art piece but was really funny, so I had to include it.
What the heck?
Do you see it on my camera too?
I see it too.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So today is math day. Yippee! Let me open up my MGraw-Hill.
Yeah, I'm probably not gonna be able to show much, but I will try my best because I have to deal with something.
You don't have to talk. It's literally just me doing homework. I don't know why people are okay with this.
I don't even know why people are even showing up on homework.
Homework done. Maybe because I like seeing people suffer.
Ah,
I
I
think
can help
they're
out with
just
math though
trying
because
to
math is one
learn,
of
you
my
know?
best subjects.
They're trying to be educated by the master.
Well, I'm trying to be. Okay, let's see. Assignments,
I'm good.
maybe.
I'm good at math, but depends on what level of math it
Enough!
is.
Hold on one sec. I have to mute my mic on stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna be right back.
Ah, should I stream my grapples galore? Back up.
Sorry about that, I'm back. It might be a bit loud, though.
It's not loud.
Well, then you probably don't hear the dog barking. I'm trying to see
Nope.
where this, I don't have anything there. Let me see if I got any grades in. Okay, so far there's nothing for math so far. Which means math won't work. Fuck. Okay, math won't work. Artemis, you get to pick my next, class to pick.
Chemistry.
Chemistry? Alright, let's see what we got for chemistry. Because I think most of the classes have the paperwork.
What grade work is this?
I'm in 11th.
That's a grade higher than mine.
Okay. Do you guys want to learn about climate change?
Nope.
Well, that's the only assignment I have for, nat advice chemistry. Why am I muted in... There we go.
Stop trying to shoot me. I'm out of bullets. You tell
Okay.
me. Should I
Okay, what
also stream?
do you want to pick another class because the one assignment is not that bad, but I've got
Uh,
finance, I've got English, which we did last time, but we still have more work. I'm not in the mood.
English, bro.
You want me to do English? All right. It's a book. That's why I was reading last stream. It's a book and a packet.
I should turn down my game audio because I actually can't hear you.
Let me. There we go. Alright. We have chapter 2 is where we left off. I only have to read 3 chapters. But they're pretty big chapters. Well, it's English again. Let me go.
No. You're playing with me.
Let me go.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. So we have this. We need a pencil. Alright. I've got a soda here for my throat this time. Let me begin reading. For once. Alright.
Keep getting assists. Never.
About halfway between the West Egg and New York, the motor roads hastily. Where's my highlighter? I need a highlighter for this because I need to highlight stuff. And plus, highlighting is actually a very useful thing to do when doing homework. But I seem to misplace my highlighter. Fuck. Oh, wait, there
I
it
don't
is.
understand why girls like highlighters so much for everything. It doesn't make sense.
Okay. So, we did chapter 1. Hold on.
Remind me again why you're doing this.
Because I actually have schoolwork I need to get done, so mainly I have to finish this last question for chapter 1, and then we start chapter 2, because I forgot to do a question for chapter 1 yesterday, but it was one question.
It was but one. I need a gun.
Let me finish up this last question, and then we'll read chapter 2 today. Okay. Let's begin with chapter 2. We might need to do chapter 2 now. Let's begin. About halfway between West Egg and New York, the motor road hastily joins the railroad and runs beside it for a quarter of a mile, so as to shrink away from a certain desolate area in hills and grotesque gardens where ashes take the form of houses and chimneys and rising smoke, and finally, with a transcendent effort, of ash-gray men who move dimly and already crumbling through the powdery air. Occasionally, a line of gray cars crawls along an invisible track, gives out a ghastly creak, and comes to rest, and immediately the ash-gray men will swarm up with leaden spades and stir up an impenetrable cloud, which screens their obscure operations from your sight. But above the gray land and the spasms of bleak dust which drift endlessly over it, you perceive,
Oh,
after a moment,
hi.
the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are blue and gigantic. Their retinas are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead a pair of enormous yellow spectacles,
I
which
hope you're
passed
brushing
over.
up on your math.
Well, there was no homework for math. Now let me finish my stupid chapter. Which passed over a non existent nose. Evidently, some wild wag of Oculus set them there to fatten his practice in the Borough of Queens, and then sank down himself into eternal blindness.
or forgot them and moved away. But his eyes, dimmed a little by many paintless days under sun and rain, brooded on over the solemn dumping ground. The Valley of Ashes is bounded on one side by a small foul river, and when the drawbridge is up to let barges through, the passengers on waiting trains can stare at the dismal scene for as long as half an hour. There's always a halt there of at least a minute, and it was because of this that I first met Tom Buchan's mistress. The fact that he had one was insisted upon wherever he was known. His acquaintances resented the fact that he turned up in popular cafes with her and leaving her at a table, sauntered about, chatting with whomsoever he knew. Though I was curious to see her, and I had no desire to meet her, but I did. I went up to New York with Tom on the train one afternoon, and when we stopped by the ash heaps, he jumped to his feet and, taking a hold of my elbow, literally forced me into the car. "We're getting off," he insisted. "I want you to meet my girl." I think he tanked up a good deal at luncheon, and his determination to have my company bordered on violence. The superstitious assumption was that on Sunday afternoon I had nothing better to do. I followed him over a low whitewashed railroad fence, and we walked back 100 yards along the road under Dr. Ethelbert's persistent stare. The only building in sight was a small block of yellow brick sitting on an edge of the wasteland, a sort of compact Main Street ministering to it and contiguous to absolutely nothing. One of the three shops it contained was for rent, and another was an all-night restaurant, approached by a trail of ashes. The third was a garage, repairs, George B. Wilson, cars bought and sold, and I followed Tom inside. The interior was unprosperous and bare. The only car visible was the dust-covered wreck of a Ford, which crouched in a dim corner. It had occurred to me that the shadow of a garage must be blind and the sumptuous and romantic apartments were concealed overhead. When the proprietor himself appeared in the door of an office wiping his hands on a piece of lace, he was a blond, spiritless man, anemic, and faintly handsome. When he saw us, a damp gleam of hope staring into his light blue eyes. "Hey, hello, Wilson, old man," said Tom, slapping him jovially on the shoulder. "How's business?" "I can't complain," answered Wilson unconvincingly. "When are y'all going to sell me that car?" "Next week. I've got my man working on it now. Works pretty slow, don't he?" "No, he doesn't," said Tom coldly. "And if you feel that way about it, maybe I better sell it somewhere else after all." "I don't mean that," explained Wilson quickly. "I just meant—" His voice faded off, and Tom glanced impatiently around the garage. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, and in a moment the thickest figure of a woman blocked out the light from the office door. She was in her middle 30s and faintly stout, but she carried her flush sensuously as some women can. Her face, above a spotted dress of dark blue crepe de chine, contained no facet or gleam of beauty, but there was an immediately perceptible vitality about her, as if the nerves of her body were continually smoldering. She smiled slowly, and walking through her husband as if she were a ghost, shook hands with Tom, looking him flush in the eye. Then she wet her lips, and without turning, spoke to her husband in a soft, coarse voice. "Have some chairs, why don't you? So somebody can sit down." "Oh, sure," agreed Wilson hurriedly, and went towards the little office, mingling immediately with the cement color of the walls. A white ashen dust veiled his dark suit and his pale art, as it veiled everything in the vicinity, except his wife, who moved closer to Tom. "I want to see you," said Tom intently. "Get on the next train." "All right. I'll meet you by the newsstand on the lower level." She nodded and moved away from him just as George Wilson emerged with two chairs from his office doors. We waited for her down the road and out of sight. It was a few days before the 4th of July, and a gray-starred, brawny Italian child was setting torpedoes in a row along the railroad track. Terrible place, isn't it? Said Tom, exchanging a frown with Dr. Eckelberg. Awful. It does her good to get away. Doesn't her husband eject? Wilson? He thinks she goes to see her sister in New York. He's so dumb he doesn't even know he's alive. So Tom Butchin and his girl and I went up together to New York. Or not quite together. For Miss Wilson sat discreetly in another car. Tom deferred that much to the sensibility of those East Eggers who might be on the train. She had changed her dress to a brown figured muslin, which stretched tight over her rather wide hips as Tom helped her to the platform in New York. At the newsstand, she bought a copy of the Town Tattle and a moving picture magazine, and in the station drugstore, some cold cream and a small flask of perfume. Upstairs in the solemn, echoing drive, she let four taxicabs drive away before she selected a new one, lavender colored with gray upholstery, and in this we slid out from the massive station into glowing sunshine. But immediately she turned sharply from the window and leaned forward and tapped on the front of the glass. I want to get one of those dogs, she said earnestly. I want to get one for the apartment. They're nice to have a dog. Look, we backed up into a gray old man who bore an absurd resemblance to John D. Rockefeller. In a basket swung from his neck cowered a dozen very recent puppies of an indeterminate breed. What kind are they? Asked Miss Wilson eagerly as he came to the taxi window. All kinds. What do you want, lady? I'd like to get one of those police dogs. I don't suppose you got the time. The man peered doubtfully into the basket, plunged his hand in, drew one up, wriggling by the back of the neck. That's no police dog, said Tom. No, it's not exactly a police dog, said the man with disappointment in his voice. It's more of an Airedale. He passed his hand over the brown wash rag of a back. Look at that coat. Some coat. That dog will never bother you with catching a cold. I think it's cute. Cute, said Miss Wilson enthusiastically. How much is it? That dog? He looked at it admiringly. That dog will cost you $10. The Airedale, undoubtedly, there was an Airedale concerned in it somewhere, though its feet were startling white, charged hands, and settled down in Miss Wilson's lap, for she followed the weatherproof coat with rapture. Is it a boy or girl? She asked delicately. That dog's a boy. It's a bitch, said Tom decisively. Here's your money. Go buy 10 more dogs with it. We drove over to the Fifth Avenue, warm and soft, almost pastoral. On the summer Sunday afternoon, it would have been surprised to see a great flock of white sheep turn the corner. Hold on, I said. I have to leave you here. No, you don't. Emperor stopped quickly. Myrtle will be here if you don't come up to the apartment. Won't you, Myrtle? Come on, she urged. I'll telephone my sister Catherine. She said she'd be very beautiful by people ought to know. Well, I'd like to, but we went on, cutting back over again over the park where towards the West Hundreds. At 158th Street, the cab stopped at one slice in a long white cake of apartment houses. Throwing a weakled, homecoming glance around the neighborhood, Miss Wilson gathered up her dog and her other purchases and went haughtily in. I'm going to have the McKees come up, she announced as we rose in the elevator. And of course, I'm going to call my sister up my sister too. The apartment was on the top floor, a small living room, a small dining room, a small bedroom, and a bath. The living room was crowded to the doors with a set of tapestry furniture, entirely too large for it, so that to move about was to stumble continually over scenes of ladies swinging in the garden of Versailles. Only picture was an enlarged photograph, apparently a hen sitting on a blurred rock, looked at from a distance. However, the hen resolved itself into a bonnet, and the countenance of a stout old lady beamed down into the room. Several old copies of Count Tattle lay on the table together with a copy of Simon Called Peter, and some of small scandal magazines of Broadway. Miss Wilson was first concerned with the dog. A reluctant elevator boy went for a box full of straw and some milk, to which he added to his own initiative a tin of large, hard dock biscuits, one of which was decomposed apathetically into the saucer of milk all afternoon. Meanwhile, Tom brought out a bottle of whiskey from a locked bureau door. Hold on, my dog was wanting to come up here. Douche. Come here, buddy.
What's the dog's name?
Shushi. It's one of our dogs. He's like 13. I have been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was that afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy cast over it. Although until after 8 o'clock the apartment it was full of cheerful sun sitting on Tom's lap. Miss Wilson called up several people on the telephone. There was no cigarettes, and I went to buy some at the drugstore on the corner. When I came back, they both had disappeared, so I sat down discreetly in the living room and read a chapter of Simon Called Peter. Either it was terrible stuff or the whiskey distorted things, because it didn't make any sense to me. Just as Tom and Myrtle, after the first drink, Miss Wilson came in and I called each other by our first names, reappeared, company commenced to arrive at the apartment door. The sister, Catherine, was a slender, worldly girl of about 30, with a solid, sticky bob of red hair and a complexion powdered milky white. Her eyes had been plucked. Her eyebrows had been plucked and then drawn on again at a more rakish angle, but the effects of nature towards the restoration of old alignment gave a blurred air to her face. When she moved around, there was an instant in which some proprietary haste, and she looked around so possessively at the furniture that I wondered if she lived here. But when I asked her, she laughed and involuntarily repeated my question out loud and told me she lived with her girlfriend at a hotel. Mr. McKee was a pale, feminine man from the flat below. He had just shaved, for there was a white spot of lather on his cheekbone, and he was the most respectful in his greeting to everyone in the room. He had informed me that he was in the artistic game, and I gathered later that hovered like an ectoplasm on the wall. His wife was shrill, languid, handsome, and horrible. She told me with pride that her husband had photographed her 127 times since they had been married. Miss Wilson had changed her costume some time before and was now attired in an elaborate afternoon dress of cream-colored chiffon, which gave out a continual rustle as she swept around the room. With the influence of the dress, her personality had also undergone a change. The intense vitality she'd been so remarkable in the garden was converted into an impressive hauteur. Her laughter, her gestures, her assertions became more violently affected the moment by moment, and as she expanded, the room grew smaller around her until she seemed to be revolving on a noisy, creaking pivot through the smoky air. My dear, she told her sister in a high, menacing shout, most of these fellows will cheat you every time. All they think of is money. I had a woman up here last week to look at my feet, and when she gave me the bill, you thought she'd had my appendix taken out. What was the name of the woman? Asked Miss McKee. Miss Eberhart. She goes around looking at people's feet in their own homes. I like your dress, remarked Miss McKee. I think it's adorable. Miss Wilson rejected the compliment by raising her eyebrow and saying, it's just a crazy old thing. I slip it on sometimes when I don't care what I look like. But it looks wonderful on you, if you know what I mean, pursued Miss McKee. If Chester could only get you in that pose, I think he could make something of it. We all looked at silent at Mr. Wilson, who moved a strand of her hair from over her eyes and looked back at us with brilliant smiles. Mr. McKee regarded her intently with his head on one side and then moved his hand back and forth slowly in front of his face. I should change the light, he said after a moment. I'd like to bring out the modeling of the features, and I try to get a hold of all the back hair. I wouldn't think of changing the light, cried Miss McKee. I think it's her husband said shh, and we looked at the subject again, whereupon Tom Butchin yawned audibly and got to his feet. You McKees have something to drink? Got some ice and mineral water, Myrtle, before everyone goes to sleep? I told that boy about the ice. Myrtle raised her air to despair at the shiftlessness of the lower orders. These people, you have to keep after them all the time. She looked at me and laughed pointlessly. Then she flounced over the dog, kissed it with ecstasy, and slept into the kitchen, implying that a dozen chefs awaited her orders there. I've done some nice things out on Long Island, and asserted Mr. McKee. Tom looked at him blankly. Two of them were shushy. We have framed downstairs. Two what? Demanded Tom. Two studies. One of them I call Montauk Point the Ghouls, and the other I call Montauk Point the Sea. The sister Catherine sat down beside me on the couch. Do you live down on Long Island too? She inquired. I live at West Egg. Really? I was down there at a party about a month ago. A man named Gabsies. Do you know him? I live next door to him. Well, they say he's a nephew or a cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm's. That's where all his money comes from. Really? She nodded. I'm scared of him. I'd hate have him get anything on me. The sort I gave information was about my neighbor was interrupted by Miss McKee's pointing suddenly at Catherine. Chester, I think you could do something with her, she broke out, but Mr. McKee only nodded in a bored way and turned his attention to Tom. I'd like to do more work on the Long Island if I can get into it. All I ask is that they should give me a start. Ask Myrtle, said Tom, breaking into a short stout of laughter as Miss Wilson entered with a tray. She'll give you a letter of introduction, won't you, Myrtle? Do what? She asked, startled. You give Mickey a letter of introduction to your husband so you could do some studies with him. His lips moved silently for a moment as he invented George B. Wilson at the gasoline pump or something like that. Catherine leaned close to me and whispered in my ear, neither of them can stand the person they're married to. Can't they? Can't stand them. She looked at Myrtle and Tom. What I say is, why go on living with them if they can't save them? If I was them, I'd get a divorce and marry each other right away. Doesn't she like Wilson either? The answer to this was unexpected. It came from Myrtle, who had overheard the question. It was violent and obscene. You see, cried Catherine triumphantly. She lowered her voice. It's really his wife that's keeping them apart. She's a Catholic, and they don't believe in divorce. Okay, give me a sec. I just spilled something. Again. Fuck. Now I'm just gonna put a towel on it. And finish this chapter anyway. Hey, Jacos, guys. Daisy was not a Catholic, and I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of the lie. When they do get married, continued Catherine, they're going west to live for a while until it blows over. It'd be more discreet to go to Europe. Oh, do you like Europe? She explained surprisingly. I just got back from Monte Carlo. Really? Just last year. I went over there with another girl. Stay long? No, we just went to Monte Carlo and back, and we went all the way to Marseilles. We had over $1,200 when we started, but got gypped out all of it in 2 days in the private rooms. We had an awful time getting back. I can tell you, God, how I hated that town. The late afternoon sky bloomed in the window for a moment like a sky blue honey of the Mediterranean. Then the shrill voice of Miss McKee called me back into the room. Just made a mistake, too, she declared vigorously. I almost married a little Kiki who had been after me for years. I knew he was below me. Everyone kept saying it to me. Lucille, that man's way below you. But if I hadn't met Chester, he'd got me for sure. Sure. Yes, but listen, said Myrtle Wilson, nodding her head up and down. At least you didn't marry him. I know I didn't. Well, I married him, said Myrtle ambiguously, and that's the difference between you and your case and mine. Why did you, Myrtle? Demanded Kirsty. Nobody forced you. Myrtle considered. I married him because I thought he was a gentleman, she said finally. I thought he knew something about breeding, but he wasn't fit to lick my shoe. You were crazy about him for a while, said Catherine. Crazy about him, cried Myrtle incredulously. Who said I was crazy about him? I never was any more crazy about him than I was about that man there. She pointed at me, and everyone looked at me accusingly. I tried to show by my expression that I expected no affection. There was the only crazy I was when I was married him. I knew right away I made a mistake. He borrowed somebody's best suit to get married and never even told me about it. And the man came after it one day when he was out. Oh, is that your suit? I said. This is the first I ever heard about it. But I gave it to him and I lay down to cry as he beat the band all afternoon. She really ought to get away from him, resumed Catherine. They've been living over that garage for 11 years, and Tom's the first sweetie she ever had. The bottle of whiskey, a second one, was now in constant demand by all present, except Catherine, who just felt as good on nothing at all. Tom rang for the janitor and sent in for some celebrated sandwiches, which were a complete supper in themselves. I wanted to get out and walk eastward toward the park through the soft highway, but each time I tried to go, I became entangled in some wild, strident argument which pulled me back as if with ropes tightened to my chair. Yet over the city line of yellow windows simultaneously enchanted and repelled by an inexhaustible variety of life. Myrtle pulled her chair close to mine, and suddenly her warm breath poured over me. The story of her first meeting with Tom. It was on two little seats facing each other that are always the last ones left on the train. I was going up to New York to see my sister and spend the night. He had a dress suit, and I had to pretend to be looking at an advertisement over his head. When we came into the station, he was next to me, and his white shirt front pressed against my arm. So I told him I'd have to call the policeman, but he knew I lied. I was so excited that when I got into a taxi with him, I hardly didn't know I was getting into a subway train. All I kept thinking about over and over was, "You can't live forever. You can't live forever." And she turned to Miss McKee, and room rang full of artificial laughter. "My dear," she cried, "I'm going to give you this dress as soon as I'm through with it. I've got to get another one tomorrow. I'm going to make a list of all the things: a massage, and a wave, and a collar for the dog, and one of those cute little ashtrays where you touch a spring, a wreath with a black silk bow for my mother's graves that'll last all summer." I got to write down a list so I won't forget all the things I got to do. It was 9 o'clock. Almost immediately afterward, I looked at my watch and found it was 10. Mr. McKee was asleep on a chair, his fist clenched in his lap like a photograph of a man action. Taking out my handkerchief, I wiped from his cheek the spot of dried lather that had worried me all the afternoon. The little dog was sitting on the table, looking with blind eyes through the smoke, and from time to time, groaning faintly. People disappeared, reappeared, made plans to go somewhere, and then lost each other, searched for each other, found each other a few feet away. Sometime toward midnight, Tom Buchan and Miss Wilson stood face to face discussing in impassioned voices whether Mr. Wilson had any right to mention Daisy's name. "Daisy, Daisy, Daisy!" shouted Miss Wilson. "I'll say it whenever I want to. Daisy, Making a short, deft movement, Tom Buchan broke her nose with his open hand. Then there was bloody towels upon the woman's floor, and women's voices scolding, and over the confusion of a long, broken wail of pain. Mr. McKee woke from his doze and stared dazed toward the door. When he had gone halfway, he turned around and stared at the scene, his wife and Catherine scolding and consoling as they stumbled here and there among the crowded furniture with articles of age, and the despairing figure on the couch bleeding fluently and trying to spread a copy of Town Tattle over the tapestry scenes of Versailles. Then Mr. McKee turned and continued on out the door. Taking my hat from the chandelier, I followed. "Come to some Time for lunch someday, he suggested as he was going down the elevator. Where? Anywhere. Keep your hands off the letter, snapped the Everett. I beg your pardon? Said Mr. McKee with dignity. I didn't know I was touching it. All right, I agreed. I'll be glad to. I was standing near his bed, and he was sitting up between the sheets, clad in his underwear, with a great portfolio in his hand. Beauty and the Beast, Loneliness, Old Grocery Horse, Brooklyn Bridge. Then I was lying half asleep in the cold lower level of the Pennsylvania station, staring at the Morning Tribune and waiting for the 4 o'clock train. That's the end of chapter 2. I need a sip of my drink.
What is this book?
It's The Great Gatsby. It's the assignment that I
Oh, it is. Oh, I knew I recognized something.
Yep.
I like that book a lot, actually.
This is my first time reading it. Let me see how long the 3rd chapter is.
Fairly long, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm looking now.
One's fighting.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, it is really long. Oh my god. It's longer than the other 2 chapters.
Fine.
Okay. I gotta do these questions. Should we read another chapter? Can I make a poll in chat, actually? Hold on. I wonder if I can. Hold on, I'm gonna check something.
You
So,
can.
how?
Which platform are you on?
YouTube?
I actually don't know on YouTube. I know you can.
I think we just make a normal poll and I'll just post the link in the chat. Let me do that. Let me do text poll. Should we read another chapter? And I think if I click share, copy the link and put it there, go do the link. I'll look at the poll results.
How many people do you have?
5 people watching. 1 person voted no.
How? Like, if I'm honest, I wouldn't watch if I saw it pop up on my.
I post it in the stream channel usually, and then it's usually the same viewers for that type of stream, and then I do gaming streams. Well, I guess it's a no. I guess we'll just read a chapter each stream then, each homework stream. I keep tearing up my voice by reading that long. I am not used to talking out loud like that.
Oh man.
What? Were you getting invested?
No, I'm lagging.
Damn. Well, I can get this paper if I'm done part of it. Where the flip is my paper? Hold on. I actually lost my paper. Is it behind my computer? No. Here's my computer for school though.
I
So I
game
should
crash.
what should I do next then? Because we've got games and stuff we can play. We can play games.
I'll play with you.
Okay, Lou. I'm getting frustrated. Lunch, it's time for you two. 2 minutes.
Got it. 2 more minutes.
That's it.
Can I have 2 more minutes?
No.
Here,
Now.
let me do
I'd rather get off before
this the last check-in.
I
Human
put light in the
girl.
cat.
Let's go.
Oh, by the way, I got the server seed.
How?
I asked him for it.
And he just gave it to you?
No, I gave him some info. Not about any of our stuff. I told him about the plan to kill him.
Hmm.
Hi, sir.
What? I jumped.
Alright, I finished the question for that. So now all I need to do is question 6, which is which of the following best identifies? Yeah, it's one of those multiple choice questions. I would turn on my camera, but I haven't really showed my face on my channel without a mask. And because I'm just sitting on the couch doing it. If I'm being straight up honest here.
I don't think anyone really cares.
I go 5 again. Yeah, no. No! Can't be third.
I'm in chunk base right now looking.
Yes!
Let's see what else we can do. Well, I'm pretty much done with the homework. Oh, hey, Dr. Planet. Welcome to the chat. I just finished the chapter, and we're reading a chapter each stream, so it's a very effective way to get my work done. I might end the stream here, and then go play some games for a few and chill.
I got 5 Robux.
Alright, let me go do that. I finished the questions for chapter 2. And then next time we'll read chapter 3 and finish off the paper. Because that's the last thing we need to do is read chapter 3, and then we'll work on other classes too. Thanks for joining, if you did end up joining. I know it was a short stream. And I know this isn't really the main types of streams I'll do, but I'm trying to focus on work first, and I haven't been really in the mood to stream games. So, yeah. Anyway, that's where we're ending it today. Let me transition to this thing. Say bye if you want to say bye, Artemis. Did my Wi-Fi freeze? Probably did. That's kind of funny.